you guys, it's Dani, and welcome back. I have a long ass pile of notes to go through, so we'll see how much we actually address and how much I end up cutting out. So when I recorded last week's video, which was all about codependency, if you haven't checked it out, like highly suggested, my focus was going to be on obsessive crushing. However, when I started talking about this concept, it didn't feel aligned. In the days following that, I discovered this new word called limerence. For those of you that don't know, limerence is a term that was coined in the 1970s by a woman named Dorothy Tennov, who is the author of Love and Limerence. So limerence is the state of being infatuated or obsessed with another person, typically experienced involuntarily and characterized by a strong desire for reciprocation of one's feelings. And it does include that it doesn't have to be sexual in nature, however, in my experience it is. Because duh. I really prefer using this term limerence as opposed to obsessive crushing, because obsessive crushing can kind of come with the connotation of someone who's super obsessive or super needy, or can be a bit stalkerish, or just someone who's inherently unhealthy, all of which can be untrue. However, the reason I'm sharing this video is because I know how painful being so into someone can be, and so especially recently, I've been learning a lot about this pattern within myself, and I've also learned a lot as to how to shift this pattern into a way where you don't feel so hopelessly dependent on another person's behavior or another person's reciprocation to feel like you can live a fulfilling life. So there is a difference between love and limerence. However, just because you're in a state of limerence does not mean that you don't love this person. These two experiences can be independent of each other. And to be quite honest, I don't even like the idea of separating everything into little boxes. However, for the sake of understanding and the sake of simplicity, I am going to. So being in a state of limerence is characterized by the following. Your emotions rely heavily on how much attention or validation that your crush or that this person gives you. And because of the fact that your emotions are dependent on this other person, if this does manifest into a relationship, then it will be a codependent one. Again, check out my last video. You constantly seek validation and make bids for their attention. In short, bidding is essentially the act of doing little things to test whether or not they will reciprocate. You're basically making these little bids for affection. So let's say you're with this person and you just like poke them on the side just to flirt a little bit, you know, like casual little endearing flirt. If they start, for example, poking you back, or they laugh and they have a positive reaction to that little moment, then you would perceive that as reciprocation. However, if this other person, for example, ignores it, or this other person acts annoyed with the fact that you just poked them on the side for no reason, you would see that as a rejection, as this person saying like, I don't like you. Get away from me. And it's not that making these little bids are bad, it's more so that if they don't respond the way I want them to respond, then that means something about me. You feel like you're on an emotional roller coaster. There are moments where when you feel approved of and you feel validated, you experience this feeling of ecstasy. But when you're either invalidated or they act indifferent towards you, then you feel miserable. You also perceive their positive qualities to be exaggerated, and you don't really see their flaws. Or if you do see their flaws, you tend to minimize them or convince yourself like, I can change them. Like just being in a relationship with me would be so amazing that they would change. Yeah. Sure. Good luck. You lack clarity into who they really are. Whether or not you will admit it, you are more interested in wanting your fantasy to be fulfilled than for them to live the life that's authentically best for them. And the reason that you so badly want to fulfill this fantasy of this relationship that you have in your mind is because of the fact that you don't really believe that you can be fulfilled without this person. You may also have the tendency to be inauthentic or change yourself. And while it is normal to maybe adjust your behaviors as you get into a relationship with someone and as you evolve, there there is a difference between making decisions that perhaps you may not necessarily make outside of the relationship as opposed to being inauthentic. So I'm gonna give a personal example. There was a relationship I was in where the girl I was dating at the time was very against the idea of drinking alcohol. Instead of speaking my truth, which was, I do want to drink alcohol. Instead, what I said was, no, I'm like totally willing to like not do it. Like, I don't even want to. Like, honestly, it's just like, I don't even like it. What would have been the more authentic thing to say was, I do want to drink alcohol. However, I really value being in this relationship with you. And so I am completely willing to give that up because my relationship with you is far more important to me than me drinking alcohol. But I didn't say that. I was so afraid that by even admitting that some part of me wanted to drink, that our relationship would be compromised. You deprioritize your goals, your desires, and pretty much every aspect of your life in favor of this other person. That may seem like the thing you have to do now, but as time goes on, you will resent them for it, even though you're the one who made that choice. You think about them all the time. And a lot of times when you're thinking about them, these thoughts can be really involuntary or intrusive. That can take up pretty much your entire day or entire life. So what this can look like is both spending time replaying really good memories or spending time thinking of things you said or things you did that were really embarrassing and you're like, oh God, I wish I could go back in time and just erase that from history so that didn't exist anymore. And it can also look like creating fantasies in your head. In some way, shape, or form, they are dominating your mind. So the characteristics of love, and I guess what I'm really referring to is the love that may exist in a healthy relationship, is wanting what's best for the other person regardless of whether or not you are a part of that picture. Limerence can often appear in a way where it's like, oh, this is true unconditional love. I want to be with this person no matter what. I need this person. And we may believe this because many of the qualities in this person that in others we may perceive as deal breakers are suddenly not a big deal. But believe me, that will not last. When love is unconditional, this means you're really seeing them for who they actually are. And you're not loving them for this potential of what they could be with you. They're simply a person that joins you in your life, and if that ends up clicking and being something that benefits the both of you, then awesome, and you stay in that relationship for as long as it's mutually beneficial. You see their flaws. You don't minimize them. You don't downplay them or try to excuse them or try to justify their behavior. You see their flaws for what they are. You are able to look for, and not only look for, but actively seek for incompatibility. When you are able to see incompatibility, what you're really doing is saying, okay, is it safe for me to be my authentic self in this relationship? And if we both are being our authentic selves, are those authentic selves aligned to have this type of connection? Your feelings towards them does not stop you or prevent you from being your authentic self. If anything, what you're really looking for is someone to be authentic with. You're also not thinking about them 24/7. And I'm not saying like, oh, you just rarely think about them or only think about them when they're around, because when you have feelings for someone, it's normal to think of them more than you would think of the average person. However, these thoughts don't get in the way of you taking action on your goals or your desires. You are not deprioritizing everything in your life because of the fact that you can't stop thinking about them. And my last point is your emotions are not dependent on their behavior. And again, it is normal for your emotions to be impacted by someone when, for example, you state your feelings of love to them and they say, I don't feel the same way. It's not like those feelings dominate your entire experience. It's not like you're making decisions specifically to see whether or not they reciprocate, because you're more focused on the authentic connection rather than trying to do anything you can to get it. So, before I really get into the tips that will help you deal with limerence, or the tips that will help you come into a state that isn't so miserable, I kind of want to talk a bit about the function of limerence and how limerence really works. The person you have these feelings for, in kind of a way, it's kind of hard to explain, can be referred to as the limerent object. So the limerent object is the idea or template that you create in your mind about the person that you were having these feelings towards. So essentially, the limerent object refers to the fact that who you actually have these feelings towards is not the person who you see standing in front of you. The person who you're actually in love with or in limerence with is the person who exists in your mind. It's the person in your head who you're replaying those memories with. It's the person in your head who you're having these future conversations with once you get to be with them. So it is really important that you understand and become aware of and admit to yourself that you may not be perceiving this person for the truth of who they are, but rather the fantasy that exists in your head. And believe me, I have been that person who has been like, I see them for their flaws, I still like them anyway, I don't know why. And it's because you see both at the same time. So on one hand, you may to some extent see this person and their flaws, but on the other hand, in your mind, you're developing this relationship to this other version of them or the limerent object, and you're still plastering that on top of them. So the question at this point is, why do I have such strong feelings for this person? If you take away anything from this video, take away this. The good qualities that you perceive in this other person are qualities that you believe that you lack within yourself. And because you perceive these things as lacking within yourself, you perceive this person to be the solution. Okay, I feel really unpopular. If this person who has a really exciting social life makes me their priority, then I am worthy of whatever it means to be popular. Okay, so let's use the example that this person is really successful. What does that mean? If they are successful, they are worthy of anything they desire. If they are successful, then they are worthy of love. So unconsciously, the meaning you're assigning to this other person is they are worthy of love. They are worthy of what they desire. So if they approve of me, then to some degree, I am worthy of what I desire. If they can get what they desire and they want what's best for me, then they can get me what I want because I don't believe that I can do it by myself. So this person is your supplement for what you are lacking from within. The fact that you don't currently feel like you have those feelings or traits or beliefs that I am good enough, I am worthy of love, can make it feel like there is this giant void inside of you. Just because you believe you're not worthy of love doesn't make you unworthy of love. Just because you believe that there's something wrong with you doesn't mean that there's actually something wrong with you. So what's amazing about this pattern is the fact that this other person is a representation of all the things you're lacking within yourself that you aren't really lacking, you're just separated from internally. You can experience an external version of this internal union. But the problem is, you believe that this person is the only way to fill the void inside of you. And I'm not going to lie, temporarily it feels like it does. But here's where I'm gonna attempt to mindfuck you, okay? If you're not really liking this person for who they are, but instead who you actually have these strong feelings towards is this person in your mind who you've plastered their face on top of, who is that? Who is the limerent object? It's you. You are the limerent object. You are that person that you've been needing. You are the one that is worthy of love. You are the one who is worthy of success, but you fragment yourself, and your self-concept, your identity is going to be ruled by the belief of I am worthless as opposed to I am worthy because of the fact that being whole within yourself, being yourself completely was not safe. And believe me, if you get into this relationship with this person and sacrifice your desires and your authenticity to be with them, to experience this union, you will never experience it completely. The physical connection cannot replace the internal union. It is time to get into the tips. Use limerence to your advantage. Do not try to get rid of it. In a lot of the research I did, I saw advice such as start focusing on someone else and develop a crush on them. Or remove any triggers in your environment you have around them specifically so that you don't think about them as much. These strategies can work. These strategies may actually get you to the result you're looking for. But here's the thing. This is a pattern that exists within you. When you get over this person, there will be a day where these feelings transfer right to another person and you have to experience the same roller coaster all over again. The thoughts and feelings you have are always going to transfer because it's never truly about the other person. It is always about you. So if it's at that point where, for example, your life is being completely derailed because you cannot stop thinking about them, it may absolutely be in your best interests to do some of these other tips that pull you away from these feelings so that you can get your life on track. However, I am not here to tell you how to get over someone. I am here to tell you how to expand. I'm making this video not to make you feel better right now. I want to share with you what I believe and I know from my experience will better your life. So instead of trying to change this pattern or forcing yourself out of this pattern, I want you to accept that this pattern exists within me for a reason. And if it is here in me now, then it is for my highest good. I am supposed to feel this way. Use it as a tool to expand your awareness. Use these feelings as a giant spotlight onto what aspects of yourself you are still in rejection of. Change the way that you hyperfixate on them. And as I said before, I know a lot of advice may come down to just stop doing that or focus on something else. But then if you get to that point where you can't stop fixating on them, you can't stop thinking of them in that way, then you're gonna feel even more frustrated and ashamed of yourself for not being able to just stop it. And then you feel like, oh my God, there's something wrong with me. I can't stop thinking about this person. So what I've learned to do is shift my focus from what do their behaviors mean about how they feel about me, and focus more on how their behaviors are a reflection of where they currently are. From what they show to me, would we actually be compatible? Is it safe for me to be my authentic self with this person? How do their behaviors reflect what they currently believe about life? By opening it to a more curious place, you start funneling more energy into truly seeing them for who they are. And here's the thing. Your thoughts will go back to that familiar place. Don't expect yourself to be like, I just shifted my focus and now I am only trying to see them for who they are, because believe me, you are used to riding that roller coaster, and so you're not just gonna like hop off the roller coaster because suddenly you shifted your focus. It doesn't work like that. It's a practice. You're going to have those thoughts and be like, oh cool, I'm having those thoughts right now. You don't have to sacrifice who you are or what you believe to get someone to like you. You are worthy of being loved for exactly who you are. And if you are so concerned with trying to get this person specifically, and it's like, you don't understand, Dani, this person is completely different than any other person, like I'm willing to give myself up for them. Wouldn't it be better if you never had to? Wouldn't it be better if you didn't have to give up a single thing about who you are to be with this other person? Because there's people out there who will love and accept you for exactly who and what you are. You do not have to minimize yourself for that person. You are worth so much more than that. Number 3, see this person as your mirror. When I have a crush on someone, I tend to become really polarized regarding them. So on one hand, I experience like really intense admiration, and it's like this giddy inner child comes up and I'm like, oh my God, like I can't, oh my God, I like them so much. And then there's another part of me that's like, oh my God, I fucking hate you. You're stupid. I hate you. Get away from me. However, if you were to come into union with these aspects of yourself that you have pushed away, then you would not feel dependent on this other person in order to feel fulfilled, or in order to feel like you are worthy of love. Because all of those beliefs come from your childhood. So let's say that authentically you're a very creative and artistic person. However, you grew up in a family where being an artist was a gateway to being a starving artist, to be nothing. So you push away that desire. You push away that creative aspect of you, and you choose to, for example, focus on science and math, and you've made all of these decisions unconsciously because of the fact that you have told yourself it is not okay to be a creative person. But in order to push that aspect of yourself away, you have to believe things like, there's something wrong with me. I'm not good enough as I am. You perceive this person to be worthy of love, to be good enough. And so you want to pull them closer. But then there's also this polarized aspect because they are a representation of what it is within yourself that you're rejecting. There's this unconscious belief that if you were to come into union with this person, that there would be something wrong with you. Because ironically, the thing that you're most ashamed of is the antidote to your shame, which is why, at least within myself, sometimes I've gotten really embarrassed over the people who I have this attraction towards. And so by experiencing this intense point of attraction to that other person, I get to experience a mirror onto the fact of, oh wow, I'm still not being authentic as to what I want. I'm still hiding things to myself in fear of how other people will think of me. What's really cool about seeing this other person as your mirror, even when you experience those intense feelings of polarity of like, get away from me, or those intense feelings of giddiness and like, oh my God, you can also ground yourself in this appreciation of like, I am so grateful to have you in my life. Even if nothing comes out of what I feel, I am grateful because you are my teacher. And I also get to see through this strong attraction towards you that deep down, I want to accept those aspects of myself. But I've created such a strong mechanism of self-hate in a way that I have convinced myself that these authentic aspects about me are bad, when that aspect was as much a part of your embodiment and your expression as your current self-concept. It did get you hurt. It did get you rejected. And so you learned if I reject it myself, then the people in the physical world don't reject me as much. Number 4, ride the wave. When we experience this wave so intensely, we shift our behavior to be in compliance with it. We shift our behavior so that, oh God, I'm experiencing these thoughts and these feelings of wanting to make a bid for attention or wanting to smoke that cigarette. And what we tend to do is as those thoughts intensify, we smoke that cigarette to experience that point of relief. But the thing is, instead of being present with these thoughts, what we do is we try to get the wave to go to the place that we like. We try to shortcut it. When in reality, it is possible for us to ride that wave, experience the intensity of the feelings, feel those emotions, experience those thoughts, observe the whole process, and over time, it's naturally going to dwindle. And yes, it will be like this. So there's going to be those moments of craving and moments where you're not in craving and moments where the craving's really intense again. And so instead of subjecting yourself to trying to make the wave feel how you want it to feel, accept the wave for what it is. When you're trying to change your behavior to experience that point of relief, it's almost like you're investing more in that wave. And look, if you make those bids for attention, if you end up finding yourself not truly riding the wave, that's okay. You can learn to ride the wave in those points of relapse almost. It's like, okay, I feel the urge to smoke a cigarette. I'm not gonna smoke it right now. I'm going to feel these emotions come up. I'm going to experience the thoughts coming with it. I'm observing this pattern. And then you eventually might choose that relief. But at least, instead of immediately escaping as soon as it comes up, you are choosing to experience the intensity along with it. Even that is a drastic improvement from being completely powerless to this wave. Don't resist the process. Every addiction we have is an artificial relief from the pain we experience within. It will never be true relief because getting into a relationship with this person doesn't really solve anything. When we develop the capacity to be present with these really, really challenging feelings, and when we are able to recognize that what I'm experiencing within this wave pattern is temporary, it becomes easier to act from a different motivation. Number 5, wake up from thinking about them. So let's say I'm in college and I have a paper to write and I'm typing away at this essay. And then at some point, I start zoning out thinking about them. I am replaying past memories or having a conversation with them in my head or thinking about how it would feel to be with them. And as I'm zoning out, maybe a few minutes into it, I recognize, oh shit, okay, I'm thinking about this person. At that point, you ask yourself, does this serve me right now? And do not be ashamed of your answer, because you may be sitting there thinking, oh, the right answer is no, like it's not time to think of them, but maybe it is. And so you consciously choose to think about them. And this can both be when you're busy or when you're not. Let's say you're with a group of friends and you're sitting there spacing out thinking about them. You may decide, you know what, I want to be present with my friends right now and I want to connect with these people around me rather than connect to whatever's in my mind. But maybe at another point, you're writing an essay and you're spacing out thinking about them and you're like, you know what, I'll be a lot more productive later if I really sit with these feelings now. So maybe you pull out a journal and you write down what you're thinking. Maybe you sit in a meditation and feel what feelings come up by intentionally choosing to think about them and by intentionally choosing to direct your attention elsewhere when it feels like that's in your highest good. You instantly start shifting the power from this place of powerlessness of, oh my God, I can't stop thinking about them, to this place of, I am selecting to think about them. Like, think of it this way. If in a way you're always avoiding it and your mind feels like there's something there for it to understand or crack or integrate, if you're constantly pulling away from it, your mind feels like it needs to take every second and every opportunity to fuel that fire because you're trying to avoid it. But if you're present with it completely, then you start to tell your body, I will not avoid this. When it comes up, I will be there. I'm not going to try to escape it. I'm just going to recognize what I'm doing and make the choice from there. Because really all this is being with yourself. When you're in a state of separation, you're only with a certain little part of yourself. There are times where you can experience that feeling of wholeness. Number 6, focus on the relationships that you have now. This point can be hard for 2 reasons. The first reason being, if you are deep in this pattern, most of the relationships that you've probably attracted in your life are ones where you have sacrificed yourself and you have been inauthentic to maintain connection with other people. So to say that focusing on your other relationships is going to fix this pattern is naive. However, it is true that when you start to open your heart and when you start to more deeply connect with other people in your life, you may be able to open yourself up and say, you know, even though I see that maybe my parents don't accept me for being super into spirituality, I see that when I feel really angry and frustrated, they're able to validate that and accept that as part of me. And as you open yourself up to more people, you will be surprised as to how a lot of them are able to respond to you and how a lot of people in your life who you feel like couldn't possibly understand you may actually be able to love and accept you more than you think. By opening yourself up to that, yeah, you are opening up the door to be rejected. You are opening up the door to confirm your worst fears. But when you open yourself up to other people, you realize that you don't need this one specific person in your life. You realize that unconditional love doesn't need to come from one person. And in fact, it shouldn't come from one person. Building relationships with the people in your life now is not going to solve this pattern. But I bring up this point because when we're in such a limerence state, we often tend to neglect our relationships. So in my first relationship, I was really into this person. Amazingly enough, I actually had exactly what I wanted. We spent almost every spare moment together. In a lot of ways, it felt as relieving as I expected. So in my senior year of high school, we went long distance. And it was in moments like that where I realized, what if this person died? I'm putting all of my eggs into this one basket. And I looked around at my life and I realized I had pretty much no friends anymore because I had cut off a lot of people for the sake of being in this relationship. In that type of relationship, your sense of safety, your sense of fulfillment is an illusion. It is something that can be ripped from you in a second. If that person breaks up with you, if that person stonewalls you, if that person passes away, what do you have left in your life? If you are completely dependent on them for your emotional well-being, you are setting yourself up for a really unsafe life that's cocooned by this false sense of safety. A lot of what I've learned from that relationship did not come immediately after getting out of it. Immediately getting out of it, I was like, fuck that bitch. She's the worst. She's a terrible person. She's toxic. And even though I do not communicate with this person, I feel such a deep sense of gratitude and appreciation for the fact that I had her in my life. And so If you have the opportunity to do that and it feels right, go for it. If you're at a yes completely, there is absolutely something there for you. Without further ado, thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Please hit the like, please subscribe, please, and hit the join button to see more on the Foxx Tribe, my members' videos. I love you guys. Thank you so much and have an amazing day. Why do I feel like there's more to say?